inside joke on the channel is every time Nick changes the day up on me, I say Happy Thursday, and I always get it wrong.
Yeah, usually we have to push it to Friday, and then he says Happy Thursday. I'm like, Nicky, it's Friday. Come on. Anyway, that's that joke. So
More jokes. More jokes.
Yeah,
Well,
more jokes.
as you can see, we've got 5 people up here. We originally had 2,
Yeah.
but in pure Cloud Foundry Weekly, we're just going to do this on the fly. We're just going to make stuff up as we go, which is what we've done. And we've got more guests up for us today, so this is awesome.
Yeah, and we have listeners joining remotely. Let us know if the audio is good. If you have questions, put them in chat. We'll try to address them. But we have some returning friends of the pod and some new friends of the pod. So how about we start with our new friends and tell us a little bit about yourself. I guess we'll start with David Stevenson.
Sure. I have the mic. I'm David Stevenson. I've been in the Cloud Foundry community since about 2013. Love it. Been so much fun. I worked on a little bit UAA, Bosch, Cloud Controller. I dabble in a variety of things. Pivotal, VMware, Broadcom, and still kicking it.
So before we hand off the mic, we'll just go this one at a time as we introduce the new people. So one of the first things that we usually do on the channel for new guests, what's your first CF push experience?
I had some, to Greg's previous conversation, a Ruby app, of course. Like it was something I was developing to harvest stuff out of Pivotal Tracker in order to give me some analytics about it. And I had built it and I was running it on my laptop and I'm like, I got to try this out and see if it works. And I got one thing wrong, I think, in my gem file, and then it just built. And that was exciting. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll just push a few more things. So I just kept pushing stuff and, almost all of it worked. A little bit of it needed a bit of modification, a few build pack environment variables here and there, but it really wasn't that hard. Nice. So I used it also because Heroku was a bit of a pain. It was charging me money or shutting down on my dynos all the time.
Yeah.
Behan, can you introduce yourself and kind of tell us your story and your genesis?
Yeah, hi. I've been also active in the Cloud Foundry community since 2015. I also did stuff in Bosch and currently more in the Cloud Foundry perspective from developer side perspective. Also active in the community, member of the TUC, Technical Oversight Committee, and in the Foundational Infrastructure Working Group.
Wow.
You remember your first CF push or your first Bosch deploy, maybe? Or what was your first thing that you did?
Yeah, I wanted to joke that when I think back, I first remember Bosch deploy because I've been in the Bosch, but I can say that I don't remember so much from my first CF push. I can just remember that getting the ORCAN space was more difficult than doing the CF push because, you have to answer questions like which cost account belongs to your ORCAN space, which is sometimes not so easy. And coming from Bosch, it was also somehow interesting that it just worked without having a manifest, just doing CF push. In Bosch, sometimes it's hard to get the manifest right. And I just did git clone and CF push, and it just worked. Yeah. I think it was 2017 the first time. Yeah.
And we got Greg Otto, so not the first time on the show. You were here with us in our last Cloud Foundry Day North America. Welcome back.
Thank you. So I'm Greg Otto, and I lead the Developer Experience Platforms team at Comcast. I've been a proud member of the community since, I think it was either 2013 or 2014. First CF push experience was a workshop that I had done with the development team. It was a 2-day workshop. And we built the platform and deployed an app in those 2 days. And the CF push was so anticlimactic. I was like, wait, so that's it? And the app's running. It's it was pretty mind blowing. That was my first CF push.
Everybody knows Amelia.
I think she's an official CF Weekly Live podcast host as well, because I think you've been in every one as well.
Okay, so. The live ones, yeah. And some not live. Good to see you again. My name's Amelia Downs. I've been a software engineer here. I'm the new one to the Cloud Foundry community, only since 2016, so newer than everyone else here. I remember not quite my first CF push, but I remember when I went into my RPI to start working at Pivotal. Who here did an RPI? Yeah. Stevenson RPI'd me. And I said, this seems great. I can't figure out what Cloud Foundry is. And you had to explain to me what it was because I could not tell from the promotional website, marketing website at all. And you showed me for the first time what it was. Yes, and at that point I was working at a company where we were still SSHing onto our VMs and SCPing our Ruby app up and running it ourselves. So it was pretty mind-blowing.
So it's 2025. So some of you are repeat guests. I think I'm. Can you hear me? I'm right. Okay. So I guess my double mic scenario isn't working. But it's 2025. We have some repeat guests. I guess what excites you most about the Cloud Foundry community currently? What are you looking forward to? I mean, Nicky and I could talk all day about AI, but I'm gonna really try hard not to. I could turn this into a Home Labs Anonymous and be a leader as well, since everyone's talking about my basement data center too. But just what are some things you're looking forward to? What's going on from we have users and contributors. What would you like to see or cover?
Oh, okay. All right. I'm excited about the Home Labs Anonymous, turning it into the footprint of Cloud Foundry has kind of gotten smaller while also hardware has gotten larger and cheaper. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is not actually that big of a tax anymore. I've started my own home lab. I run it at home. It's very fun. It doesn't take up that much room. I run a bunch of stuff. It was pretty easy to run. I like the way that vSphere squeezes all the memory out of unused memory out of all the VMs and pools it. So there's some cool, I'm learning all the virtual infrastructure layer. That isn't exactly a Cloud Foundry thing. I think on the Cloud Foundry side, I'm kind of excited that the Kubernetes is absolutely the thing that everything is going to run forever is the solution to everything. FAD seems to be waning a little bit, and there's room in the community and the ecosystem for straight PaaS solutions like Cloud Foundry. Again, I was a little worried for a while because I'm like, oh, if everybody thinks Kubernetes has to be the thing, and everybody thinks Kubernetes is also a platform to run apps for some reason, then that puts us in an awkward Cote positioning sandwich thing. And I do feel like people are open to new ideas in that space again, which is great.
Any other excitement?
Yeah, today we heard a lot about developer experience, how easy it is, but I still see potential that we can do better, in service management space. Sometimes it's not so easy to recreate service instance binding, for example. You need to do blue-green deployment to get just binding recreated, for example, which I think we can improve. Also, we are talking more and more about multiple foundations nowadays. And also many people want to reuse the service instances in the multiple foundations, which should be also an easier thing to do than doing user-provided services and having some limitation with that. I'm also excited about App Manifest v2, Greg talked about. I think having a declarative way to define the applications will help a lot for many issues developers have nowadays when they surprisingly take stuff out of the manifest, but it's still there. It's not deleted by the cloud controller after the CF push. Yeah, I think there's still a lot of room to do improvements in the developer experience space.
Greg?
So things that I look forward to and what I appreciate about the community, it's two sides of the same coin. So first is the people and the passion for developer experience, right? We heard that a lot. And, at the same time, the industry's been distracted with things that are below the value line for our developers. And to see this resurgence of hey, wait, developer experience is the product. That is the thing. And we need to rally around that, and seeing that come back in fashion for the rest of the industry. It's really awesome to see, and I really look forward to growing that passion, and renewing that for a lot of folks that might have gotten lost along the way.
Okay, I'm gonna choose something small, but something that I'm very excited about, which is my working group, Application Runtime Platform, has, I'm gonna guess, about 120 repos. That's just my working group that we work in regularly. And so if you're like, oh, I wanna work on Cloud Foundry, wouldn't that be fun? I'm newly put in here. And then you look and you're like, oh my gosh, what do I need to do? How much do I need to clone? And I've been working with Maximal from SAP to reduce our number of repos. So I'll just contributor experience, reduce the repos, make it easier for people to just clone one thing or two things or a couple things and not the entire world, so they can contribute easier.
Okay.
Thank you, Max.
I think, man, just choosing one, there's so much. To be honest with you, we promised we're not going to talk about AI. That's something really exciting right there, bringing back into private cloud. But really this kind of resurgence of, let's think about the developers again, to what you said. I think when, some of the other technologies came around, it took away from that developer focus. And developers were starting to get asked to do a whole lot more things, and we got pushback on that. We saw a lot of pushback that I don't want to do all that stuff. I just want to do my code. Well, guess what? There's an answer out there. And I like seeing that resurgence coming back to developer experience. But at the same time, in a way that makes it easy for platform engineers. That's something that we've got to remember as well is platform engineering. You can have something that developers absolutely love, but if it's a pain in the neck for the engineers to run it, there's going to be friction there. So I like the fact that we're seeing this platform that's existed for a decade, that people knew and loved, and it just runs, right? To throw that out there, coming back and people starting to realize that there is a lot of value inside the developer experience again. How about you, Nick?
Yeah. Sorry, I moved the one camera, so I have to step in focus because I realized that we cut off Stevenson. So we've got Stevenson, so I'll just scoot over here. I'm going to talk about AI a little bit. I can't help it. So
always do this.
Yeah. So what excites me? I was at a customer site last week, and AI seems to be driving, like the AI PaaS play seems to be really driving excitement again, where we had 82 developers join a hands-on workshop doing live and like provisioning CF spaces and then using some of these new cool MCP things, and like Corby, shout out to Corby, he was there with me, and we were doing a lot of cool work there at that customer site to see. They quoted that it was their largest CF workshop ever, even going back from the pivotal days. So lots of developer excitement again. So I'm excited about that. So that's I guess my little flavor of AI, and and then of course I'm happy to help run Cloud Foundry services for anyone who wants them. Soon I'll end up a chargeback model where I can start paying for my power bill and things of that nature. But anyway, you go.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to kick us off with our first question for everybody. So Deshaun Carter gave a great talk today about small runtime. Small runtime coming out is something that it really excites me because I think it's going to reimagine what Cloud Foundry was in a way. So Cloud Foundry always thinks it is the best place to run your workloads, but it is capable of so much more. So, not going against Deshaun, but, small runtime now gives us the concept of being able to do things like data services, data as a service, and being able to split those up into different data. So you could have a foundation for Postgres, a foundation for MySQL, so on and so forth. And this is something that's taking Cloud Foundry out of just being the best place to run workloads, but the best place to run data. So a question for everybody here is, what do y'all think about that aspect? Where do y'all see something like small runtime and being able to do Cloud Foundry at the edge impacting the Cloud Foundry world? Greg, start off with you.
All right. Well, so again, I lead DevX platforms at Comcast, which includes our application platforms as well as our global database services. So I am especially affectionate towards the ability for us to be able to run not just your apps, but your data as well. So, I know it breaks the haiku, right? The classic haiku. We have to figure out, how to put, apps and data with the little, caret symbol in there. But yeah, truly, that is amazing opportunity for us. And tagging on to the AI, we have this really wonderful opportunity in front of us to be able to democratize things like AI and with delivering that powerful developer experience. So that ability, to have this small footprint and better distribute and extend the control plane for these new and improved experiences is very exciting.
Democratize. I'll go next. Democratize is a really good word. And it just occurred to me that that's what you're doing with Cloud Foundry, right? You're like opening it up. I run one of these things and I give access to like 1,000 people in the org. And I just love it because I feel like I'm providing this service. I mean, you do this for a living. So that's awesome. I think there's a miss on like multi-foundational services, what you were talking about, Behan. How do you connect service in one? If you're going to start making a lot of deployments all over the place that are really small, that become specialized in like a single kind of service, Cloud Foundry doesn't really have much to help you here. So there's a real opportunity to, make an impact.
Fleet management is a thing.
Fleet management, the number of meetings that I'm in that involve the word fleet management, I mean, it was like down for a while. I wasn't in any fleet management meetings, but as Purnima said, we're back. So I'm in a lot of fleet management meetings these days.
Behan?
Yeah, definitely. I think one thing we've missed in the community is to have the easy experience, the first time experience with Cloud Foundry, just spinning up on your own laptop. This is, I think this was also one of the last presentation. Also a point, it is so easy with Kubernetes to just try things out with Cloud Foundry. You have to find a Cloud Foundry provider, or I don't know. It's not so easy. This is definitely a point if we have a small footprint which you can easily deploy on your own notebook. But also in the foundation, we saw the validations we do for the different stem cells or the different releases we have. We want also to reduce the costs there, and will be also really helpful to have small footprints where we just can validate different versions of the APIs or whatever we want to validate to reduce the costs in the foundation. And of course, managing multiple foundation will be great if we have something there. Will be also helpful. And I'm interested in the service management space to get this somehow standardized, because workloads do not stay on one foundation. Most of the time, you want to distribute or move one from one region to a different region because of whatever reasons. This will be really helpful.
Well, and you did mention cost, and I think that's something else, is a lot of companies are looking, how do you do this chargeback? And chargeback becomes a real issue for a lot of companies, especially in this day and age. And this is another place where I see that could help, right? When you're running small foundations by lines of business or by team, everything that's running on that belongs to a certain cost center. So it helps in something like that too. Amelia?
I'll echo what Behan said, that what really struck me about the presentation from Deshaun. Well, woo, I didn't get a vocal woo for that. Thank you.
You had to wake him up.
Was you said something like, oh, have you ever wanted to run Cloud Foundry on your laptop? And I was literally in a meeting like yesterday about this, where we got some new developers on my team, and they come from a Kubernetes world, and they're like, so how do I run it on my laptop? And I'm like, you don't. And they're like, but how do I get it? I'm like, well, you have to get permission to this thing to get access to a pool where someone else deploys it for you. And they're like, I just want to try it. I'm like, yep. So from the contributor side as well, it would be great to have that small footprint to be able to run, to just try it out and be able to develop locally.
That pool thing that Amelia is talking about is a Docker CPI-based BOSH deployment of Cloud Foundry that runs on a single VM that's only like 20 gigs of memory. I don't know why that can't run locally, now that I think about it, right? I mean, if BOSH can deploy Docker VMs, sounds like a laptop to me. Yep. As long as your laptop has 32 gigs of memory, which seems pretty common these days.
Is that something we could do?
I mean,
or is that?
Give me like 20 minutes.
Okay. Well, yeah, we get some work for tomorrow, right? Yeah. Well, I have a question for Greg and Behan. So, Greg, last year you shared some fun numbers about what Comcast is doing and like use cases. I don't know if you can share anything new or like anything different. And we didn't prep for this at all, so I know we had some prep last year. If you need to plead the fifth, go ahead. But if you have anything, there's any cool updates, any cool use cases from the past year that was like what you all did with Cloud Foundry. Yeah.
My memory's not as good as it used to be. So was there any of the outcome metrics that resonated, and then that might?
Was like you mentioned about like where like some of the like.
Yes, that's what I remember.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, there are specific events where we'll see surges. The NFL Red Zone first game of the season, we see like a 10x spike in demand in terms of folks that are looking to order. Everyone waits until like the first game and the first commercial. It's like clockwork every season. But yeah, we're able to handle those events with really without breaking a sweat. So these are not events that previously before a platform like Cloud Foundry that took a serious amount of planning and effort. I would say that in terms of what have you done for me lately type metrics, I could say that we're again that resurgence of focusing on developer experience and outcome metrics that continue to elevate, where things like cutting in half or even greater the entirety of the SDLC. So being able to get products out to market literally orders of magnitude faster and safer with better resiliency. I think Deshaun showed the Sergey Matishkin slide from last year in terms of we're multi-foundation. All of our apps are deployed on multiple foundations. So being able to make everything an and, right? So you get less toil, you get a better developer experience, you get a better business experience because of things like time to market, improved security, right? The cost of cyber continues to escalate, but with platforms like Cloud Foundry and the primitives that have existed, for over a decade. It's over a decade, not a decade.
Yeah.
Not to date some of us up here, but it's really, really powerful to be able to talk about improving orders of magnitude, better resiliency, security, time to market, toil reduction across the board. So, and I sandbag, within our own organization as well, but it is orders of magnitude.
Cote, somebody was listening to your marketing talk. That was awesome. Hey, hon?
Yeah, at SAP, I'm talking a lot to our users, Cloud Foundry users, and so in the last years, I don't see any more so challenging questions towards why you are still doing Cloud Foundry. It's more like everyone is seeing the use case that Cloud Foundry should be there. And also talking to people doing Kubernetes at SAP, we are not so trying to compete with each other. We are mostly in the last years trying to see where we can find synergy. So, and this is also I think the changing perspective that the Cloud Native Computing Foundation is doing great. I really like many things they do and the libraries they have. And it's not seen anymore like a competition between Cloud Foundry and Kubernetes, but more like what we can do better together. I think lately I've been following the nuts issue with the license change, and I've been really thankful that this has been handled by the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. So we can benefit from many things if we do together, work together. And this is what is changing from my perspective in the use cases. So there are definitely use cases for Kubernetes and for Cloud Foundry. Yeah, when I talk to people.
And I think that's important. Getting back to the outcomes are more important than the technology. You know, going back to something that you were talking about, David, and maybe you can go a little bit more is along that same lines of what do we see with, bringing the two technologies together? They shouldn't be competing, but what can we do from an outcome perspective to get the best outcome out of both platforms?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I see data services having a lot of traction on Kubernetes over time. I think I'm hearing stories about DBAs who get a K8s cluster and are told, go deploy all your workloads here. And it's sort of a way that like a virtual infrastructure team can interface with a data services team. And so I think there's a real opportunity to like connect back data services to Cloud Foundry applications. Let's see, what else? I think Cloud Foundry, at the moment, Kubernetes is a better place to run something that needs direct access to a GPU. We have a good story with Bosch and GPU, but developers don't deploy apps with Bosch. And if you have an app that actually directly needs access to a workload, to a GPU, we should probably make that available, or that belongs on Kubernetes at the moment.
Well, and there was a great talk here today from Any9s also about clutch. And I agree with you 100%. I think that's something, there's always going to be room for VMs. VMs are not going away, but data services on Kubernetes do have a play, and making that ability to have workloads, being able to push workloads with the simplicity of Cloud Foundry, but connect and have that same simplicity on the data side would be huge. I think that's something that people could really get behind.
And off-the-shelf software, right? A lot of vendors are distributing Helm charts for you to run, and then you want to connect to them from your Cloud Foundry app to consume your payment gateway credentials or whatever. I don't think we're going to change the world to the point where vendors start distributing Cloud Foundry apps. I think Kubernetes has won the ISV. This is how we distribute stuff. I mean, there's other formats that are also very successful, like appliance, machine images, a rack that they ship you that you put in your data center, right? It doesn't come in a lot of formats. But Kubernetes and Docker images are a pretty standard way to do that. Now we can run some of those Docker images on Cloud Foundry. We probably should, but we're not going to get them to replace Helm with whatever the Cloud Foundry equivalent of Helm is, not anytime soon. And there's no Cloud Foundry equivalent of Helm, by the way. How do you describe like a whole, maybe it's a Space Manifest v2. That could be the beginning of it, Greg. Something like that.
Any questions from the audience? Feel free to chime in whenever. I guess on that GPU comment, it would be really cool if Diego could schedule GPUs too. So there's been a lot of ask about that as well. So I would +1 that.
I wanted to take a quick 10 seconds, hopefully, and double down on something that Kote talked about, and we already lost it on stage. So he talked about how we already have some really wonderful things to be able to talk about from an outcomes perspective. And when we were talking about, the small footprint, the thing that I felt maybe was lost, and I just wanted to take a quick moment. Think about that. You're able to provide the same developer experience regardless of cloud, regardless of edge, right? I mean, that's amazing, right? So, set to call that out.
Yep. And you can save a lot of money moving between clouds too. Like I recently moved my Cloud Foundry from Google to something on premise because it was available at a cheaper cost. And like the developers, I spent a lot of time, but the developers didn't really notice. So that's the exciting part of it being multi-cloud. Unlike, some other competition is really hyperscaler provided and it's not multi-cloud.
And so again, to double down and sort of elevate the proof point, one of the things that we released as a feature that's, our business really appreciates is financial engineering as a feature release, right? So we have applications that are running in multiple clouds, both public cloud and dedicated yeah.
environments.
I'm learning, and they can move between the two, and if there's run there for a quarter and then move back, and there's no unnatural acts in order to achieve those.
Battery's dead, Greg.
Dead battery.
One last mic.
So,
Want to switch it with that one? I'll give you new batteries.
so I think, that is a very important point. There's a lot of talk going on right now about being hybrid cloud, the ability to switch between clouds. And there's a lot of companies out there fighting for that ability to say, hey, we're agnostic. And I think, that's something as a community, we need to kind of scream from the rooftops. Hey, if you've been using Cloud Foundry, you've been agnostic all this time. And when you get into something like financial engineering, that is a true, benefit to what Cloud Foundry can do. You can move your workloads. Your developers don't even really need to know that you moved them. It becomes a bean counter exercises versus a technical decision. So everybody out, remember, that's something that we need to be talking about quite a bit. We were agnostic, and we still are.
I got a quick plug. We can run Cloud Foundry on multiple clouds. Sometimes I run into the customers with things like, yes, it runs on public cloud too, which is like, boom, like where have you been the past 10 years? But yeah, anyway, and as a past customer running hybrid cloud with a like global load balancer, from on-premise to, let's say, Azure, maybe GCP, or every cloud possible, that's totally a doable thing. And we've actually have, I think circa 2019, we had a large retailer do like a live failover at like I want to say like, was it Spring or Pivotal IO or one of the Pivotal conferences, right? Where they cut over live, and I was yes, yeah. And I was like, wow, they just did that for real on stage, but it's been there for a long time. So
I don't even do my demos live. I record them.
yeah, I was like, man, whoever was doing marketing back then knew what they were doing. So I don't know how they got them to do that, but yeah.
Unless it failed.
Yeah, no, it works. They're like, go to dicksportinggoods.com and hit it, and it was running. I was like, I was like, I can't believe they approved that change request, or maybe they didn't file one. So we want to take the website down live and on a conference. Probably not okay. Yeah. So if it didn't go down, you don't need a change request, right?
Is that something that y'all have looked into, Greg? Being able to do bursting and use as a additional. Talk about it. Is it something that y'all?
So yeah, we've been doing it for years, seamlessly. So there's a lot of customers that contact us for a variety of reasons. Usually, it's not to say, "Hey, you're doing a great job." There's weather events throughout our footprint. There's other global events, and it's in those moments that being able to have that. Not just financial engineering capability, but that bursting type capability, the dynamic. So yeah, there's countless times where there's some event that causes a surge, and we're able to handle it, and it is a complete non-event.
Nice.
And it's all seamless and fully automated. So it's a beautiful thing.
It just runs, right?
It just runs.
Yeah.
All right. So any questions from the audience? Surely somebody's got a question.
Yeah, and I think we're coming close on time too. So I know people want to go out there and enjoy the after activity. So questions, anyone? Anybody?
Quiet group.
We're all tired. Oh,
All right. We got one.
there we go.
He's ready. He's got the tough question.
Hi. Do we have any timeline, like when Cloud Foundry will be available, like on a single laptop, or what needs to be done together?
And I said 20 minutes, Al. It's only been like 15, and I've been up here the whole time. But I do think it's an experiment that anyone can try. Bosch supports the Docker CPI. It will boot these like VMs as Docker images. Doesn't always work. There's a few caveats around Diego because you're kind of doing containers in containers, but that seems doable. I mean, you're going to need a pretty big system spec, but it seems doable.
Did I just hear the next show for next week?
Cool. Yeah. So
Stevenson signed up.
Oh no, James has a question now. He's ready.
Oh yeah.
It's us, yeah. Funny, great. Okay.
Scalability. I meet a lot of customers, and they're like trying to get bigger with Cloud Foundry. And I talked to one that has 120,000 app instances running, pretty big. It's kind of an interesting problem to have, right? Which is you're successful enough that people use you at scale. So where do we go, and what's the maximum scalability of a logical Cloud Foundry?
1 billion containers. I don't know.
I don't know. I was thinking about this recently. I think that there's not necessarily a hard limit. I think there's a single BOSH director that manages a pool of VMs. That becomes a scalability concern that's probably fixable. BOSH is already capable of deploying to multiple regions, multiple, vCenters, AWS regions, et cetera, right? So Diego is a very well-written container scheduler and executor. It used to be this Ruby thing that was very slow, and then we rewrote it in Go. Good job, team. It's able to handle a huge amount of containers. Your blob store becomes a huge scalability problem because you're going to be pulling a huge number of container starts at once. You need some Cloud Foundry compatible, S3 compatible, whatever blob store that's highly scalable. I don't know. Other than that, I think we could be running thousands of VMs, running apps, maybe. I don't see a reason why not. Anybody else have any reasons why it might not work?
Yeah. At SAP, we have experience with
They already
scale. Different. It depends also on the hyperscale. On the different hyperscalers, you have different performance. For the blob store, for example, we observed that some blob stores do not perform so well. Also, the Postgres has a limit of 5,000 connections. Depends on how much the cloud controller needs to be scaled. But yeah, it can handle a lot of workloads. It's definitely doing better than what we see with Kubernetes, for example.
So at Comcast, we're looking at pretty closely at that as well. I mean, there's a few factors. There's the sunny day, and then there's the rainy day. So when there is a big event, or if there's a big major outage that takes out, like the East Coast, that's happened a couple of times. Things like the blob store, where you have, potential scale storms, restart storms, things like that. And then also in terms of doing maintenance. So, how many VMs, can BOSH, sort of rotate through, and certain maintenance events are more expensive than others. So it was definitely exciting to see some of the updates in BOSH, and also like the CPI being rewritten in Go recently, and so forth. So I think that we're on the right track to take advantage of some of these newer capabilities to scale the environments, but understanding fault domain management is definitely a thing, especially when during some sort of an outage or a scale situation. So that would be the other caution that I would, or consideration that I would put out there.
Greg, I love that you meant literally sunny days and rainy days, not metaphorically.
Well, and I think that gets into a little bit of the question, the answer is kind of it depends, because then you really got to get into things like engineering, how those storms are going to happen, what's your max in flight. And then there's also the question of, how many foundations do you want? Because one big foundation versus multiple little foundations and how that's going to act. So, I guess the answer to that is it kind of depends, and everybody's going to have a different breaking point depending on how you engineer it.
Spider blocks help scaling out past like 255.
It would definitely make it more convenient for you to increase the number of apps and to be able to increase that without having to get it all together. So yeah, definitely the non-contiguous overlay networking. So would IPv6. Alexander, can't wait. Yeah, I've worked with open source users who run 600 plus Diego cells in one foundation. They can run it well, but usually you run into some interesting networking concerns, which are overcomeable. But I've heard it's more performant to increase vertically instead of so far horizontally, but doable, yeah.
And for those that are listening that did not hear, so, hat tip to Amelia and her team. So non-contiguous IPs, that IP space,
Yes.
that is now a thing that we can do. So you weren't able to see the talk that she gave. That is a new feature. That's an awesome
I
feature.
see. Mostly exciting for me because I got to write a big feature in Silk, and we usually never touch Silk because it doesn't break and it just sits there. So I was excited to get it in there.
Cool. All right.
Okay, so would you go recommend doing a few large foundations or multiple small foundations?
I believe Nicky already answered this question when he says it depends, because totally, like, I would love to see it possible to run large foundation, but also careful, right? Like, what if it goes down? What if you mess up? What if like anything happens? I love the idea that it will be just as easy to run lots of little foundations as it is to run one huge foundation, and then you just get to figure out what topology you want, right, and why you want it.
Yeah, for us, it's really about abstracting the number of foundations so that the continuous elevation of the contract with development teams, right? So, first, any one foundation, plan on that, going down, right? So, what is the contract that you have with your development organizations for things like max and flight? Hey, I'm going to have this amount of turbulence in a foundation, but I'm only going to update one at a time. But then also, some networking things that we're doing that helps us insulate our customers from their apps and their data where we do the distribution. So kind of that multi-foundation application and data distribution is very helpful, because then we're able to move things around without having to ask our developers to be able to do that. So I think that you want to reframe the problem so that it actually doesn't matter.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I do think it depends on what your architecture is looking at and what you're looking at, as you said, with your contract with your developers. Looking at things like what you want your blast radius to be. Are you architecting this for a cost perspective versus resiliency expected? The types of workloads that you're doing. Again, looking at maybe you want to have a foundation just for AI. Maybe you want to have a foundation for lower tier apps, and your class A apps have a bigger foundation or more resiliency. So I think the really important thing here is with SRT, we now have got some more options on how we can architect what our full sphere looks like for our developers, so we can build something that's a little bit more custom built versus something that's just large.
I know we are, where we, oh, you're good. Well,
My question is on clients. They all want to reduce cost. So how does Cloud Foundry help them reduce cost? FinOps based or monitoring or whatever.
Well, there's so many good answers. This comes up all the time, right? At the infrastructure level, containerization helps reduce costs, right? Because we're packing more and more workloads into a smaller resource footprint, right? In the old days, you'd have a server per app. Now we're like cramming them in and scheduling them perfectly, right? And then like the other big cost thing that I think about, Norm, is how much time do you have to spend working on this thing, right? As a PE, the beauty of Cloud Foundry is we often see very small teams of maybe 2 or 3 platform engineers serving a community of like 1,000 or 2,000 or 10,000 developers. So that's a cost factor. Like they could have been served by 20 platform engineers in the past.
Amelia?
I am not about cost.
Spend money, don't say.
Yeah, I spend it.
I got some insights. There you go. All right, can I make it a hot mic? There we go. So I think too, from a cost perspective, a lot of people forget about the multi-tenancy construct of Cloud Foundry, and then they try to extrapolate larger or medium foundations into like, oh, I can just put this on Kubernetes. But then you take like, I don't know, we're gonna say 20, this may or may not be from real world experience of, let's take 20 plus Cloud Foundry foundations and turn that into 600 to 700 Kubernetes clusters, or maybe more like 1,000. Well, now I have, if I have 1,000 Kubernetes clusters in production, I have a minimum 3 master nodes per cluster. So that's 3,000 VMs alone and just overhead of the control plane for Kubernetes. So I think as a community, we don't talk enough about the true PaaS multi-tenancy of Cloud Foundry, and that helps out a lot. And maybe the blast radius of foundations, are you deploying pairs or quad, we deployed in a 4-pack is what we called it, and across multiple data centers, and load balancers in front of it if one went down, or you update one half at a time, that type of thing to help mitigate that. But yeah, I think that's a big cost thing that we don't talk about enough. Is it's a true multi-tenant, hard tenancy platform that Diego lets you pack a lot of things in there. And if you go to Kubernetes, you have things like CPU reservations where developers will start reserving CPU cores and then driving up consumption really fast too in that way.
It's been a long time since I looked at it, but I remember it was over 10x in terms of infrastructure cost, right? Moving to containers, over running on the kind of bloatware version. But for me, it still comes back to when you look at sort of the costs of the infrastructure compared to the opportunity costs of what your developers could otherwise be doing, it starts to make those infrastructure costs more like a rounding error. So when I think about like the costs, I think about it in terms of more the broader developer time and opportunity cost. And it's been a long time. The infrastructure costs are still very efficient, with Cloud Foundry.
So I'm going to piggyback on what you said. I think one of the most important things when we're looking at cost is we're forgetting about some of the soft costs. How much are you paying your developers, and what's their time worth? So if you've got a team of 50 or 100 developers and they're spending, if you go back and you look at the market and what they're saying, they only spend about 30% of their time doing code. The rest of it's doing other stuff. If we can increase that by 10% and they're now getting 5 or 6 more hours back in the week to actually produce code and produce something of value to the company, that's a cost savings. And that is a cost savings that will eventually, overtake what you're spending on infrastructure. But it's not a hard cost, so a lot of people aren't looking at it. And I absolutely, in talking with customers, talking with people that do this, that's one of the first questions I'll ask them. What are you paying your developers? And what is the cost that we can recoup if we give them more time to do what it is that they want to do?
And again, I would rephrase it from it's not about driving efficiency. It's really about being a value multiplier, right? So again, whether it's these newer patterns around AI, I mean, we have this amazing opportunity to be a significant value multiplier for our businesses by unleashing the developers to do what they do best.
Greg can get us in a whole other talk on that one right there, but hopefully that answered your question and gave you some ideas.
I think, are we okay?
We getting pulled off?
Yeah.
All right.
I think so.
Music's coming on.
Yeah. Any last comments? But we'll sign off here. Thank you so much for everyone, our guests. Thank you for our viewers. Thank you for everyone here in the community. Yeah.
I'm guessing you didn't bring your big pillow, did you?
I did not. You should, everybody. I have sticker. You need to go to the Cloud Foundry Weekly YouTube channel, subscribe, because it helps, and you should watch all our videos and like thumbs up and do all that jazz. It really does help. So check that out. We have weekly shows, and there's a lot of good content and what we talked about, in previous talks, especially around AI and things. And there's a lot of friends of the pod out here already who've already been on the show and covered different topics. So check us out. And then and then this is a pop quiz. Some of you know, how do we end the show? Anybody know?
What was it? That's right.
There you go. Yeah.
All right. So I guess Nick will give us a countdown, and then if we can get everybody, sign off for us.
Yeah.
Ready?
3, 2, 1. CF. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.